So, quick unboxing video, which I don't really like, but so that's the REL coming out, which I've been basically listening to and auditioning for the last week or so. And here is the Rythmik FM8 coming out of the box. Just got it, so I will be replacing the REL with the Rythmik and comparing them shortly, and associated gear, which I will write up. And hold on. Baby, can you focus on me? Can you focus on me? Hey everyone, Will Brink here, Brinkstone.com. Quick video for my audiophile friends that follow this channel for that discussion, which I don't do probably as many of those videos as I should be, but you know, I don't update my equipment that often, and I rarely, you know, do make requests to review stuff, though I have recently for a couple of things. But recently, my beloved Velodyne HGS-12 sub plate amp died, and that was after 20 years of use. So I can't really I can't say it didn't give me its money's worth before it did that. So I sent the plate amp out for repair, and decided that that was my opportunity to maybe try some other brands, and if I liked them, I'd keep it, and I'd either use the Velodyne somewhere else or sell it or whatever. A little background on Velodyne. I mean, if people don't know Velodyne, Velodyne really was one of the first companies that made great subs for music that weren't just home theater type subs that just went boom boom and bang bang and all that. Again, we're talking 20 years ago plus. They went out of business for a while. I think they're back now, which is great. They were purchased by somebody. But if you don't know Velodyne, Velodyne, like I say, was one of the first companies, I think, to really put emphasis on musicality and speed and accuracy and that type of thing. So the HGS series at the time was their top sub. They are servo driven. Again, I don't know if they're the first company or not, but they certainly one of the early companies to work with servo systems in subwoofers, and they again were just really accurate and fast and musical, and one of the subs that made audiophiles actually like subs, because again, especially then, not as much now, but especially then, audiophiles versus say home theater, and even home theater was kind of a newish thing, coming in 20 plus years ago. But most audiophiles back in the day did not like subwoofers, and understandably, because like you say, they were muddy and they were just overbearing, and it didn't sound great in the systems. Again, I think Velodyne was one of those companies that changed their minds if they integrated it properly and all that. So I would say I'm actually a little bit spoiled before I start talking about the REL sub and then this Rythmik sub. Now, by today's high-end sub standards, I guess the Velodyne would probably not match up, but certainly still would match up well to most other subs. And these were expensive subs. I mean, these were a $2,000 sub 20 years ago. So these were not inexpensive subs, but they had, like I say, a lot of power, 1,000+ watt Class D servo-controlled sub, big, giant magnet, really thick HDF and MDF bodies and all that. So to me, that's kind of my reference sub that I would be comparing to. Now, one thing about the HGS sealed sub, the 10 and the 12, these are also very small subs. So again, for people that didn't have either want to take up a lot of space or didn't have a lot of space, the Velodyne was an excellent choice. So to that discussion, to that reason, why did I decide to try a REL T9X? Well, mostly because of the size. If you look at the video that I will put up in a minute, but I have exactly 14.5 inches to work with width-wise, from the sidewall to the edge of the speaker stand and the way my system is set up to work with. And so I'm like a lot of people, space limited. And now again, some people either space limited because that's all they have. Sometimes it's because they just, they or the significant other or whatever just doesn't want to look at a giant box in their living room. Understandable. So the reason I gravitated towards the Rel T9X was it is exactly 14.5 width. It's a very compact sub. It has, some great reviews. It's a really nice looking sub, and remember that matters. Again, some people want something that kind of looks nice and fits well visually and stuff. So understandable. I think Rel did an overall nice job with that. And so this was the largest in that line, the T9X. It was still even a little bit smaller overall than the Velodyne. So again, I thought let me give this guy a shot. It comes in around $1,500, so not inexpensive, not real expensive. I think somewhere in the middle there. So things I liked about the Rel, again, the size for sure. It offers a 10-inch driver and a 10-inch passive. So should see a nice sounding overall sub for its size. Again, you are going to have to keep stressing the size. This is a very compact sub. So I put the Rel in. I set it up again using the Arc Genesis room correction software, which is a game changer. That's something you have to look into. You can take a look at the Anthem review I did on my integrated amp, which has the Arc Genesis. So everything was set up as it was with had been set up the same as it had been. Put it in the corner as they recommended, using, like say, the Anthem has a full bass management, DSP, and so forth. So all set up pretty much the same way as the Velodyne. And to be perfectly honest with you, I found it lacking. It was not bad. I found it on the lean side. I found that in some, really bass heavy tracks that I tend to like to listen to, such as some music from Her. I don't know if you Her. Yeah, I wish he had a different name because it confuses people. Erykah Badu. Some of them are very bass heavy tracks. Peter Gabriel, the old So album, has some pretty bass heavy tracks in it. I found that, say, in some tracks it was there. Other tracks it just wasn't where I was expecting and was used to hearing, so obvious bass. And I'm not talking about overwhelming. We're not talking about overpowering. A properly set up subwoofer, of course, does not pull attention to itself unless there's a lot of bass in a track to hear. Then obviously you should hear it. And I honestly just did not find the Rel satisfying, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And I have to. You're talking about a very compact sub. I think a lot of the costs of that sub are dedicated to fit and finish and the looks of it and all that, and I understand that. But I really did come away feeling that for around that money or less, I could probably do better, sonically speaking. And I didn't. The Rel did not live up to the Velodyne. And they're not apples to apples subs. They're comparable in size, but the Velodyne is slightly larger. It has a 12-inch driver. And understand the Rel is only rated down to 27 hertz. This is not a sub that's expected to give you, really deep rumbling bass. No, there's not a lot of music that goes below 20, but there are definitely tracks from certain that are asking for low 20s, certainly. And I just did not feel that the Rel hit it for me, personally. In other people's room, in other people's systems, it gets great reviews, but I'm not going to go on and on about the Rel, only to say that at the end of the day, also, FYI, my girlfriend, who is not an audiophile, but she is a musician. She has a really good ear, for music. And I thought the two of us were a good pair, where maybe I'm more being sort of more audiophile in terms of what I'm listening for. She being more musician, what she's listening for, and she also just didn't like it. Neither one of us were terribly satisfied with the REL. So I'm not going to say I'm going to go on and on about it, but just needless to say, I decided to send the REL back. And I would, before I go on to talk about the Rythmik FM8, I would just like to give a shout out to Music Direct, where I ordered the REL. I also ordered from Music Direct my main speakers, which I do reviews on. I had ordered several pairs from them, and I review the ATC 11s and the 19s. But shout out to them in that, I was able to return the REL sub without any drama. I don't order things to return them intentionally. It's not my intent is to keep them. My intent when I order from anybody, but if I like, is to keep it. But knowing that you can return something to Music Direct without drama, without any questioning, whatever, is great. It takes the stress out of it, and I appreciate that. And I will say that I highly recommend Music Direct ordering from. You'll be happy with them. I was very happy with the shipping and the return shipping and all that. So moving on to the Rythmik FM8. The Rythmik FM8 is a really interesting little sub. Now, again, why did I choose it? Well, my first reason for choosing it was, again, the footprint. The footprint is very small. It only takes up 11 inches because basically where the box goes is vertically. So it's taller, but it's the width and the depth are actually pretty small. And so if you're looking for something that really takes up a small footprint and you don't mind giving up, some height, it's a good choice. Their other subs were a little wider than I wanted for that corner. So I decided, I know that Rythmik views the FM8 as something of a niche product. I mean, if you look at this, and what I'll do is I'll put all the stats of the Rythmik FM8 below, and I'll link to it. So if I miss something or you want more information. But my initial reason for deciding to try the Rythmik FM8 was the brand Rythmik. Again, all of the reviews that I've read and heard from people really like Rythmik. And when you look at cost, value for cost of Rythmik, they seem really difficult to beat to me. So I was gravitating towards the brand, and I saw the FM8, and I saw the really small footprint, and I saw the rating of 18 hertz to 250 hertz, which is quite a spread for, any sub, frankly. But for something that small, the Rythmik is using two 8-inch drivers. It's a sealed sub. It's a servo-controlled sub. My understanding is a different technology, a different servo technology from what Velodyne use and others. But this is a servo-controlled sub. It is using two Hypex amplifiers, Class D amplifiers. So I really liked the concept of it. And as you'd expect, there's always going to be a trade-off for what you're getting. I mean, what you're going to get is two smaller drivers, two 8-inch drivers versus a single 15 or 18 or whatever. But I liked the reviews that I had read of it, and there are not a lot of them. There are really not a lot of reviews on the FM8. But what I read was everybody really liked them. And so I decided to take a chance on the FM8. And so far, I really like this little sub. I have nothing but positive things to say. And this is $500 less than the REL. Now, it's not really an apples-to-apples comparison. For example, the surface area, I do know that two 8-inch drivers does not equal one 16-inch driver. These are not apples to apples. The actual surface area of two 8-inch drivers, I think, comes in closer to a 10 or 12-inch driver, surface area-wise. Somebody can correct me on exactly what those numbers are. But I do know that what you're not getting, two 8-inch drivers are not going to equal the performance of one 16-inch driver from a sub. But it's a very small box. And my experience with it is I really impressed. I really liked the sound from the Rythmik FM8. It's very fast. It's very taut, but it's warm. It's not lean and dry sounding to me as the REL was. again, this is a smaller sub. You're not going to get, even though it claims 18 hertz. A, I didn't measure it. Two, obviously, when you're talking about 18 hertz, I mean, at what volume or what SPL level are you talking about, and what distance? I don't tend to listen to music terribly loud. I listen, my listening levels, my normal listening levels are probably, a 70 dB with like a 75 dB spike. And when I turn it up loud, 90 dBs with like a 95 dB spike is about as loud as I go. And I found that Rythmik, that little Rythmik, had no problems with it. Sounded great. Like you say, very fast and tight and quote unquote musical. It's an annoying term, I know, but it's a very musical. And this is their intention. If you read who they're marketing this sub towards, it's really towards probably two channel music listeners. But I must say I was really impressed with that little sub, and I'm so impressed with it. I've ordered another one. And what I'm going to do, and I'll do a follow-up video, which is with this little sub, is I'm going to use them both as speaker stands. Now, which is not that easy to do with other subs, depending on their shape and their size. Well, the Rythmik FM8 happens to be basically both the shape and the height are almost dead perfect, give or take about 2 inches. If you're going to raise or lower the speaker, the main, to get that tweeter to your about your ear level. But it's pretty much dead bang on about the height, width, and shape of a speaker stand. And I'm not going to get into depth about that now because that'll be a follow-up video. But I have seen other people do it, and again, they were very happy with it. So I'm actually going to have a second one coming in. I'm going to try that because that's the only place, honestly, I have to put. Now, you will note that the rating of 18 to 250, 250 is very high for a subwoofer. And the way that Rythmik sort of is marketing this again is that this gives a sub that you could use either with another sub, like a bigger sub, and you could use the Rythmik to you can use a high pass filter, and you can use a sort of that mid bass. Use the Rythmik to use as a mid bass filler. But what I am going to do is once I have two of them and they're lined up, I am going to raise up the crossover and maybe run them around 100 to 120 because you're getting more directional as you go up. But they're going to be right in front of me. They're going to be used as speaker stands. Again, I'm not going to go too depth into that. I'm going to do another video when I get the second one. But I think that potentially there's a game changer setup here. I mean, it's going to be a very different setup. Now, I'm just going to say this, and then I'll get on to one FM8 in the corner as it is. But Rythmik does not recommend that setup, but we'll see. Anyway, so the FM8, I recommend it. Now, as far as output, it's probably going to, I know it's going to have less output than some of their other offerings. Even their comparably priced, even slightly less costly 12-inch single driver 12-inch guys. But again, the room-wise is another, I think they're about 15.5 inches, and then I would have to start moving stuff around. I would have to take my whole system and move it to the left, and it's going to be off-center and all that. So for me, that FM8, if you are limited on floor space, but you want a quote-unquote real sub, that is not like, say, some of the little micro subs and stuff that are out there, which again, I haven't tried them. I think they do a commendable job of doing their best to defy physics, with little push-pull type configurations and stuff, and I've heard they sound pretty good. But at the end of the day, you're still working with the laws of physics when it comes to subs. And I think as far as a very small footprint, but a really good sound as far as volume, SPL, speed, musicality, all that, I think the FM8, I think it's a great little sub. If you have the room, you probably, especially if you want to crank it up again, if you really want to crank it up and you are looking at, let's say over 100 dB type volume, the FM8 probably is not the best choice. Though again, it does allow you to use a rumble filter to not try to drive it to those extremes. It may still be usable. The next question, of course, would be, well, what about home theater? I don't know. I haven't tried it with home theater, frankly. Two of them might do the trick. I have no doubt that if you have the room, you're still going to be better off with, you know, going with the 12-inch or 15-inch or whatever. But I think otherwise, if you're pressed for space and you're considering, you know, a rel or whatever, I'm going to recommend you check out this Rythmik FM8. Now, final quote or final assessment to say before I sign off here. Again, the Rythmik is all business. It's not a pretty sub. It's built like a tank, this thing. It's like 70 pounds. But as you can see, it's a very industrial looking sub. It's not the rel, to give them credit again, is a very attractive little sub. It takes a very small amount of room. It's got a really nice finish. Rythmik offers a gloss finish on the FM8 if that's what you want. But again, if depending on what you're trying to do here, I'm not going to say don't get a rel if some of this has to do with size and visuals and all that. But I do think as far as taking up a small amount of floor space and getting full musical fast bass that's very satisfying, the Rythmik is definitely my choice over the rel T9X. And I didn't really want to make this a video. It wasn't a rel versus, because I do think they're still this is not an apples to apples comparison. And you'll notice even in the title of this video, I didn't say rel versus. It's going to be rel and Rythmik. I think these are apples to oranges products, but if it comes down to, as far as my choice or maybe yours, whereas the major choice was limited space, wanting to take up a limited floor space and get the highest quality bass from it, I'm gonna take the Rythmik over the rel all day long. Now this may be my final choice, because I said I ordered 2 of them. I'm going to reconfigure my whole system using 2 of those Rythmik FM8s as my speaker stands. That's going to be a whole different animal. And however, if I expect it to be exceptionally good. I mean, as good as that little FM8 is in the corner, my expectation of having 2 of them, putting them at equal distance to my mains and changing and raising the crossover to, I'm going to play with it, but you know, 100, 120, maybe even as high as 150, and then using a stereo bass filter. Well, I think that's going to be a whole other animal, and would still have cost me less than the single Velodyne. Again, keep that in mind. So hope this helps. Ask me any questions and hope your comments. Sub up, like this vid, and I'll see you guys on the Brink Zone.